Thanks for tuning in to the Spread Your Wingspan podcast.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Jenny.
And we're your hosts, two friends who immediately bonded over our secret smut addictions. So join us as we journey together through our favorite romance and fantasy stories and discuss all things kinks, female pleasure, taboos, and more.
Make sure to check out the show notes for any spoiler alerts and content warnings. We're happy you're here. Let's get to today's pod. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Jenny.
It's been a minute.
It's been a very long time.
It's kind of funny, we try to record these in advance and then life happens and here we are.
Yeah, COVID happens. Yes. Lots of fun things.
Glad it's in the past. Glad to see you're feeling better.
Definitely. Me as well. So we had I got a little brief spoiler from you about your feelings about this book today. So I think it's going to be an interesting discussion.
It is.
We've talked about it not at all.
No, it took me a month to read this book. Mostly because the recording of this was delayed by some weeks because poor Sarah had COVID. And I like to read them and be mostly fresh when we record these because I just feel like my thoughts are better. So I started it and then I had to keep going back into it. And granted, this is only a 5-hour book on audiobook. It's not a long book, but I'll share all my thoughts. I am glad I finished it. I am happy you suggested it. Mm-hmm. It won me over in the end. But for me, it was a little bit more tedious than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, I'm so interested in this.
Yeah.
Okay, so today we're talking about Misadventures of a Curvy Girl.
Another Sierra Simone.
You guys, we will read other authors at some point. This is from a weird it's a big series.
Yeah.
Of Misadventures novellas written by different romance and smut authors. Sierra has 3 in the series, I believe.
Oh, I didn't know she had 3 in the series. Got it. Okay. This one's number 30 something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've only read the ones that she has written. Only 2 of them. One is Misadventures of a police officer, and I was like, I'm not interested in being titillated by a cop. I don't know what year it was written, but and the other one that I read is Misadventures of a Professor, which I did not enjoy as much as Curvy Girl.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Notes.
Content warnings for this one. We have some, I would say important content warnings. So, fat phobia, self-hate, internet bullying, and not just standard internet bullying. I would say very cruel internet bullying, verbally and emotionally abusive ex, emotional and verbal abuse from family. On the more fun side, we have the threesome, throuple / polyamory. There's anal present / DP. And then on the not fun side, some suicidal ideations. So it really, there's a lot jam-packed into this little novella.
There is. We'll get back to that.
Yes. Shall I read the synopsis?
Please, Sarah always writes the best. What's the plural of synopsis? Synopses? Synopsises?
I don't know.
Well, Sarah's really good at writing them.
Thank you very much. I feel like this synopsis is as long as...
It's good though.
Okay.
Good points.
Okay. Ireland Mills leaves an emotionally abusive relationship determined to stop hurting and hating her body through countless diets, clothes that cover her up, and exercise that she doesn't enjoy. While on her way to an assignment for her marketing firm to take pictures of farm life in rural Kansas, Ireland's Prius gets stuck on a muddy dirt road. Fortunately, she's rescued by the very farmer she was supposed to meet and photograph, Caleb Carpenter. Caleb is extremely hot, and we soon learn from his point of view that he is rock hard horny for Ireland literally the instant he sees her. Things heat up between them once they get to his farm, despite Ireland's doubts that such a hot cowboy would be interested in her, and the mystery of a certain ex-soldier, Ben, Caleb's ostensible roommate. Once Ben enters the scene, the true dynamics become clear. He and Caleb are 2 parts of a throuple who have been looking for that special someone to complete their 3 for a long time, and they're certain beyond doubt that Ireland is that person. Between extremely hot sex, or a tornado that tears the town apart, Ben's PTSD, Ireland's journey in grappling with fat phobia and body image, and the intrusion of an abusive ex, along with the worst parts of the internet, our throuple has to find a way to stay with one another despite all that might stand in their way. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Well summarized.
Thank you. Yeah.
Synopsisized?
Synopsisized. there's a lot that happens in this tiny little book. And I think I really enjoyed this book. I'm so surprised. So this is definitely like the most porny, I would say.
Yeah.
In that it's like sex scene, interlude, sex scene, interlude, sex scene, like.
Yes. Yes. And I guess I was expecting from the beginning for the plot to hook me more because of Sierra Simone.
Mm-hmm.
I do think she got there in the end. And for sure, this is a novella, so it is shorter. She has less time. So yes, that does lend to there's a lot of steamy, great sex, but it is very porny. I found it from the beginning to be a little implausible and for the characters to be a little too whiny. All of them. So also, Ireland's like lavender lipstick just from the beginning bugged me.
Oh, I hate the lavender lipstick.
It really bothered me.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
I'm just like,
bad.
I mean, come on, nobody.
I think it's like the 2016 Instagram era.
I get it. It just the things that I was like, who's this and why do I care? And so I'm gonna say this and two truths at the same time. Her statement on Ireland as a curvy girl and the journey that she's going on to accept her body because of fat phobia, societal conditioning, all that, and also her abusive ex-boyfriend. If I'm reading porn, I don't really need to be taken on that journey. So for me, I almost wished that was a novel without all of the super spice because I felt like the two were just incongruous together for me. I almost wanted them to be separate. Because I kind of wanted to know more of Ireland's internal stuff, not just as a response to society and her ex-boyfriend. I felt like I almost wanted to know more about her. And she was a little too like, she just bugged me. She did. And it's okay. I'm not in love with every character.
Yeah.
But I also understand that through the process of meeting Ben and Caleb and the way that they adore her and the way that they fall in love, like, that I thought was really beautiful to have an expression of two men who are childhood friends, become lovers, decide that they're only ever going to have a third that they're both into. Like that I thought was really great. I just felt like she was almost trying to do too much in such a short amount of time.
I do think this would have benefited from being a longer book for sure. I'm fascinated by this take though, and I think it might come down to this is not for you. This book was written for fat women because. And I think that's a really important key here. And Sierra has basically said this. And she also has written books with Julie Murphy, who wrote Dumplin', that are romance books. And all of the protagonists in those shared books that they write are also fat women. So Ireland is a size 18. We would call that perhaps mid-size. But, you know, in our world, like that's a person who, you know, is identifiably fat and will have experienced fat phobia throughout their life. And so, well, that is not the size that I am. I think I identify more with this because I grew up in a larger body as a child. And I did not see myself as a romantic lead ever. I did not think anybody would ever be sexually attracted to me. I did not think anybody would ever love me because of my body. And so I think the fantasy, the implausibility, this is like a fantasy for fat women to show them that they deserve to hold on to these fantasies and wait for them in real life. You know what I mean? So I feel
I
like... I
don't disagree with any of that.
And it makes... Yeah, so I didn't even consider that from a different point of view. That would seem like a mishmash rather than like a blend.
Yeah, even if this had been a story where I was identifying with a female main character, I still think it was a mishmash. But I hear what you're saying. But I think by the end, I did understand that, and I celebrate that, and I think it's wonderful, and I love all of that.
Yeah.
I really think that lavender lipstick just really fucking bugged me.
So for what everyone, for understanding, so part of Ireland's journey with, and she starts out already on this journey in the beginning, is, you know, after leaving this like very abusive ex, she's like, I'm going to wear what I want to wear. Like, I'm going to wear cute crop tops and like little mini skirts and wear outrageous colors of lipsticks and make myself more visible. because her sister and her mom and her boyfriend had always been like, make yourself less visible. You're already so visible because you're fat.
And her boyfriend in particular, which really broke my heart. He's like, it just like he was doing her a favor by being with her.
Oh,
that whole thing,
And he's ashamed of her, and he calls her his cousin when they're out in public together. So when she's wearing these bright lipsticks, it's her way of being like, yeah, look at me. Look at me.
This should have been red.
I agree. I totally agree. The first time I read it, I was like, yikes, lavender? But, you know, I think it makes sense for this character that she's young.
Yes.
And she's trying things out.
Yes.
I think Ireland, maybe 5 years down the line, probably wears red and not lavender. You know?
That's fair.
But yeah, I think so. She's a little quirky. She's an artist. I think that's also going along. Like, she's a photographer and an artist. She's a little like, just quirky.
Yes.
I understand why you found Ben whiny. How did you find Caleb whiny?
Oh, they were a little too golden retriever.
Oh, Caleb is full. It's a full golden retriever black cat situation.
Yes, totally. No, I also, maybe because we've been reading a lot of sex scenes for this podcast, like your note down here, like, stop saying most secret place.
Oh my God.
Like there was a lot of stuff, like her channel, like, come on guys.
Yeah.
Call it her pussy.
Fully agree.
Call it her pussy, her cunt.
Just say, honestly, even say anus and asshole to me.
Yes.
I like, don't say her most secret place.
Yes.
But that happens in so much romance and smut, and it always bothers me.
It bugs me.
I'm like, call it what it is. Yeah. Yeah.
All the time.
Because people say clit. Well, when people say like button or like special, like, like nubbin, and I'm like, what? But so when people say clit, I'm like, you did it. You said clit. Now you can say vagina. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I will say this is the one note I said to Sarah when she walked in. I just found like Sierra Simone sex is now a little predictable, but Sarah rebuts this with maybe some of her other stuff.
We
might not be
have read Sierra Simone's vanilla catalog.
And at this point, it seems vanilla.
Dear listeners, if you're like, Priest and Sinner were vanilla? Yeah. If you read the New Camelot and then the Lioness series, and I can only imagine it's like the education of, or the miseducation of Ivy Leopold, I don't know exactly. Those are a lot darker. And like Sierra's whole thing on Instagram is like all these reels of her being like, I'm gonna tear my reader's hearts apart. Like, ha 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 ha. Just like kind of like in agony the whole time. And the sex is a lot more BDSM, like a lot more pain and pleasure. Okay. The throupling dynamic, she does a lot. It's in New Camelot and Lioness series. So a lot of the combinations of bodies, I would say, is repetitive. And additionally, in both of those theories, there's a strong dom, and then there's a switch dom sub and a strong sub. And so those dynamics in those characters can feel a little like copy paste, but I think that's because she's like, I'm going to give the people what they like. Yeah. So I also think those get repetitive, but in a very different way that I think Jenny will really like. So I think you should definitely read the New Camelot series.
Sarah's like pandering. Now she's like, you're gonna love this.
But yeah, this is what happens when you read an author's catalog. You're like Sarah J. Maas, freaking like velvet covered steel, and like the length of him, and slammed home, and they all kind of do.
It's true.
This
it's true. I just need to read more non-smut to make this smut feel special.
Yeah. I find the smut in here pretty good, all things considered, with the like most secret place words. I think it's pretty hot. I really enjoy Ben's dirty talk.
Yes.
Their throuple dynamic is like they both actively have sex with Ireland, but Ben kind of like narrates and tells Caleb and Ireland what to do, and is like talking about how much they both like it, and it's very good.
Yeah, the dynamic of Ben and Caleb, the fact that they grew up together and then became lovers in high school, and figured out the dynamic that they wanted to be together with another woman, that they knew a third was the way for them, and then the way that is normalized to the degree that it can be normalized in the context of this novella, I thought was really well written, you know. Also, I really wanted McKenna to go back to the farm and for them to just have a little foursome.
Oh yeah, that would have been good.
I was really hoping for that. I'm like, please go there, please go there. Yeah, so like, you know, their ex-girlfriend that lived with them for a while. And then the fact that this was the best part of the book for me, in the storytelling part. When Ireland goes to the farm or goes to the town for the first time and meets the older woman that, you know, Ireland kind of gets a vibe from Caleb and then hears about this Ben and she's like, oh, they're gay. And then this older woman is like, just give them a chance. You don't really know what's going on. And then come to find out, this older woman very openly lived with two men in the town in kind of like the generation older than them. And then the fact that, was it Caleb's dad told him, like, you know, if it's okay if, you know, you want to live your life with Ben, or if you want to live your life together, it's okay if you want to live your life together with a woman. And I'm like, okay, this is really cool. This isn't anything I've ever read before. Where it's like this small town in Kansas. This
rural, seemingly conservative farm town. But the kind of the point is, because it's small, everyone like knows everyone. And therefore it's like, well, we love you, you know? And yeah, this older couple very much clearly set the precedent. Yeah, I love that.
I loved that. And I was so confused, like, why is she telling Ireland to give them a chance? Like, what is that? Like, what's happening? And so I thought that was really sweet. So again, like the way that Sierra can kind of weave these little details in, I think is really lovely. The way that McKenna, who was the ex-girlfriend of Ben and Caleb, and then it seems that she left because of the PTSD, Ben.
Yes, Ben's PTSD.
Ben's PTSD of being, you know, in intense war and, you know.
And she left because it changed the dynamic between the three of them, not so much because she was like, I can't support you in your mental illness.
Exactly. It was that she, so then McKenna ends up telling Ireland that, you know, this is the best, that they love you, and if you love them, you should be together. Like, don't throw this away. So, yeah, there were a lot of really beautiful elements. And like I said, by the time I came to the end and I could look at it as a whole narrative arc, as a whole journey of these three characters and the minor characters and everything, I was like, okay, yeah, that was good. It was just, I found it a little tedious.
Yeah, it's so interesting because this is one that I've reread a few times. I think I wouldn't have reread it again quite so recently if we were not doing it for the pod. But again, like, there's not a lot out there that's like this.
Fair. And I understand that.
Yeah, and I think both in terms of the fat protagonist and the throuple. Like, I think, you know, reading a romance and smut book where the throuple is like a relationship and like the romance is this like long-term commitment relationship and it's not just for the sake of sex scenes.
Yeah.
That's pretty unique.
Fair.
So I also think people who engage in polyamory might enjoy, you know, knowing this book is out there. Or anybody out there who's curious how this stuff works.
Yeah. And the challenges that come with it.
Correct, because those challenges are, in classic Sierra Simone fashion, everyone is their own worst enemy.
Yes.
They all self-sabotage.
Yes. I know when Ireland left, I'm like, girl, okay, now I have to read a couple chapters of you.
I think, it's important to remember that she's young. I think she's 24, 25.
24, yeah, something
so
like that.
she's, I think that might be part of the frustration. If she was 30, this book would not progress the way that it does. Like,
true.
I think, you know, she would be further along in her journey of understanding herself. But, you know, a 24-year-old running away, you know.
That's fair.
But again, do we always want to read that? No, we should find books with older women who are more self-possessed. So some themes. The main theme of this book, in my opinion, is self-love.
Yes, for all the characters.
For all of the characters, correct. I think mostly you see that through Ireland, her journey with herself, and then Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb loves himself and again is this kind of golden retriever who's like, can't we all just get along?
He's the typical farmer cowboy trope of like, I just want my woman, I want to worship her, I want to, and in this instance he wants to worship Ireland and Ben.
Yeah.
You know, these are my lovers, these are my people.
I'm loyal, I'm protective, I'm simple in a good way.
Yeah.
Like,
I got my truck and my gun.
And my dog. My three-legged dog, Greta. Yeah. And the best Caleb part, I think, is the interlude where you learn about when he realized that he was attracted to women in larger bodies in I think like middle school, and they were learning art history. The Rubenesque women, and he gets like super hard in school and goes home and masturbates and is like, oh boy, like, And the way Sierra describes and sexualizes, and again, not in a fetish way, fat bodies is like the way that, through Caleb's point of view specifically, like her softness, like the way he can hold her and touch her and squeeze her and like lean into her. And like, you're not like, oh, what a stretch. Like, so hard for me to believe. You're like, yeah,
No,
you know?
there. It's
yeah.
delightful.
And it's like, yes, like, wow, spoiler alert, fat people are also super hot, you guys. But we're so conditioned to not think that.
Or to think that one ideal image is what everybody thinks is sexy.
Right.
Which is so not true.
And especially this like very stereotypically hot blonde cowboy, right? Who's like 6-pack, 6'4", you know, like
Two of them,
yeah. But like Caleb especially is like, Ben is described as like slightly smaller, slightly like darker haired, like, oh no.
He's only 6'2" with rock hard abs.
Correct. That somebody like that, you know, their proclivity would not be to somebody who looks like them. Right.
That's quite the height difference.
Quite the height
Ireland's
difference.
5'2".
Yeah, it's a real Zayden and Violet situation.
It's just occurring to me now when they stand. Like the photo that they took for the newspaper. Really? She's tiny.
Yeah. And that's why it's like she's like, they look like my bodyguards. Like, yeah. Okay, so another one that I really enjoy from this book is perspective and how we can't really know what another person is thinking. Mm-hmm. And I think she utilizes the multiple points of view really well in this book to show that. Because when Ireland first meets Caleb, she's like, this is a very hot cowboy. And then she's like self-conscious about herself.
Yes.
She's like, oh God, what does he think of me? Oh God, my skirt is hiding up. But then he's like, at one point she tries to get in his truck and she falls and he catches her. And she's like, is he attracted to me? No, he couldn't possibly be.
Because he fully palms her butt to lift her back into
and he like is like holding himself very still, and she's like, "Am I getting vibes? No, I couldn't be getting vibes." And then you immediately go to Caleb's point of view, and he's like, "Oh my God,
I cannot control myself.
I need to have sex with this woman immediately. She's the hottest woman I've ever seen. Please don't squeeze her butt. Don't like maul her. Like, oh, her skirt's riding up. That's so hot. Like." Just the assumptions, especially on Ireland's part, that are being made about how Ben and Caleb feel. This also happens later when there's a misunderstanding with a way that Ben reacts to the tornado that happens in their town. Ireland takes it as rejection based on her body. Again, she's viewing everything through the lens of her body, which again, I think is like a lot of people will relate to that who struggle with body image. And from Ben's point of view, he's thinking like it's purely coming from this PTSD, like very traumatized instant reaction.
I don't want her to get hurt. I can't lose her. She can't die.
Yes.
Very traumatic response.
Yes. But they totally don't understand how the other person had the reaction they had. And again,
until they talk about it.
Yeah. And so I think that's again like that's kind of cool to see in a romance novel. I think that's something that is explored in fiction often. Mm-hmm. But, you know, often in romance novels, it's like there's this presumption that everyone's on the same page, I think, unless there's a miscommunication trope, which we hate. That's not what's going on here. It's not miscommunication. It's like they communicate actually quite maturely, I think, at various points.
When they actually are in the same room communicating.
Correct. Right.
Yes.
And they talk about how communication is so vital to a throuple.
Yeah. The boys say that they've learned through experience because now they're
in their 30s.
Yeah. So they're 20 years into at least being attracted to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Little less into, they do say that high school was the first time that they had an encounter with another woman.
Mm-hmm.
Girl. High school.
Yeah.
They're girls.
Yeah. Yes. And they, like, Ben frequently says, like, don't lie to us, or, like, don't keep secrets from us. Like, tell us how you feel. This isn't going to work if we're not open with each other.
Transparent, immediacy.
And for Ireland, this 24-year-old who just come out of an abusive relationship, who's used to people, like, oppressing her, she's like, be honest with you? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I think, I'm like, that seems very sincere to me. But again, I can understand how some people like Jenny would be like, all right.
Maybe because I'm 40 and I don't want to be reading about a 24-year-old.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. The impacts of systemic fat phobia on individual lives. This is, again, a main point here. And I think, as Jenny said, it's about like half the book. And perhaps for some of you, that's going to be something that reading that is really going to like change you and be very important. And for some of you, you're like, I don't relate to this. I'm not interested in this. this feels incongruous with the smut, I'm not enjoying this book as much with this exploration.
I enjoyed it in the smut part.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I loved that part of it. That's what I'm saying. I feel like I almost maybe I just wanted to read their love story a little further on. Yeah. If I was going to take this as porn, which I do these books.
But
again,
make no mistake.
Recognizing all the other beautiful stuff in it, to me, I almost just kind of wanted it to be 2 books because I don't always want to know their internal dialogue unless it's fuck me now. So
fair.
That's
like, so she tried to make it too deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or not deep enough.
Yeah. Because it's short.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, the elements of Ireland in the sexy threesomes I thought was delicious and delightful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just then, but again, if I'm reading something to be pleasurable, I don't want to be taken out by then my, oh, poor Ireland. Oh.
Because it is quite sad.
Sucks. Oh, your ex-boyfriend was brutal. Oh my God. I hope you get all of the healing and support and love that you deserve. But it's just, I would have loved to have read Ireland's story as okay, we're going to go deep into Ireland's psyche and story and all of that and unpack it and get the support. But I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe it was just too short. Maybe I just wanted it to be twice as long so I could have gotten all of it.
Yeah. In a priesty, we really spend so much time in Tyler's point of view working through his shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 But no, the sex was hot and lovely. And I loved all of her curves. And the way that they loved all of her curves, I was like, get yours, girl.
Yeah.
Thank you. I talk about healing. I mean, not that that's the only way that you can heal.
That's one of my notes. That's right here.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Hot sex helps, but won't necessarily make you love your body.
Yes.
Yes.
But the hot sex was hot.
Hot sex is hot. And it could definitely be part of that journey. But this is not oh, there's a hot cowboy. There's another hot cowboy. They find me hot. Suddenly I love myself.
Yeah. And fair. That would have been disingenuous.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And because you guys, it's not about what other people think of you. It's about what you think of yourself. And Ireland learns that. Again, that becomes a lot harder when you're getting, thousands of internet comments, which happens to her, telling you you're a pig, you're hideous, how could anybody ever love you? How could those boys love you? Again, strong trigger warning. If that's anything where that's going to be hitting home in a way that's upsetting, you probably don't want to read this.
Or only read the first half.
Yeah, because it's intense.
It does get brutal.
Yeah. And then we have, polyamorous romance, which we've talked about specifically as a throuple. And then finally, the impacts of trauma. So this is Ben's story. PTSD from war. And then on Ireland's story, the complex abuse that she's endured, from her family and relationships. So for both of them, that impacts how they relate to the people that they love in their lives.
And the barriers to being able to be free with the people that they love.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And how do you find safety? How do you find safety and trust in other people? When you want to have romantic, deep, meaningful relationships, but then you also have this trauma. Yeah. I think both of them really struggle with that at various points. Ireland doesn't trust that they are actually into her, and not just that they love her at one point. She's not you couldn't possibly, but she's kind of well, it would be better for your lives if you're not with me. So I'm just going to remove myself from the equation. When they're giving her every indication that that's not true. Mm-hmm. And then from Ben's point of view, he doesn't trust kind of the world.
Right.
And he doesn't trust himself.
Yes, because the way he pushes Ireland away is very much, I have a lot going on in my head and I can't feel this deeply right now because I don't know how to handle it. And yeah, I don't know, maybe I just wanted more character development.
I think Ben would have benefited a lot more from more character development as well. Again, Caleb is a more two-dimensional character.
He's the pillar in the middle.
Right. Yeah,
that holds
the kind
he's
of
kind of the anchor of the three. He's the steady rock for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's just got this this intense eagerness in bed that is very charmingly rendered. The way that he at the one scene where he's going down on her and he's humping the bed because he is so excited, and Ben is look at Caleb, look what you're doing to him, and Caleb's yeah, yeah, such
total golden retriever,
totally. Yeah. So if you like that, you'll love this. So we've talked about your impression. Do you have any elaboration on that?
I don't think I have any elaboration. I've identified I wanted more time with the characters for the whole of it to be a little bit more believable for me. I guess I just wanted to know them more.
Yeah.
Or if it were just going to be porn, make it just porn.
Make it just porn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very fair. My takes on reread. Every time I read it, I think the way that Sierra depicts poor body image, internalized fat phobia, and self-hate is very well rendered. Mm-hmm. And you're like, this is a person who has struggled with this. Only a person who has experienced this could write this well. And again, you might feel very, very seen and understood reading this. This is not something that's I think I don't come across this in fiction often. If you're on the internet, if you're in the fat acceptance, body neutrality, body acceptance part of social media, which I hope you are, if it's something you're struggling with, you will find a lot of beauty and love and education there. You're going to be reading lots of nonfiction, listening to lots of podcasts, Virginia Soul Smith and Maintenance Phase and Jessamine Stanley and all these amazing people who talk about this. But in fiction, I read The Earth, My Butt and Other Big Round Things, which is a YA book when I was little. And I actually had the opportunity to meet that author at a booksellers convention a few years ago. And I started sobbing when I met her because I was like, your book was the first book I read with a protagonist who looked like me. And I had never read anything after that since. It was so rare. It was this blip. And I was like, I just think it meant so much to me. And I had the most lovely conversation. I ended up emailing with her. She's great. I wish I could remember her name right now. But we'll put it on Instagram somewhere. So anyways, I think having this kind of representation in fiction is amazing. I do think also, in a lot of ways, this is very much intro to those topics. Mm-hmm. So for a lot of people who have already unpacked all of this themselves, already moved past this self-hate, already understand how bullshit it is that we prize certain bodies over others in the terms of sexuality, and they don't want to be reading about fat phobia and their fantasy, you probably will not like this. It's because you're going to be like, oh my God, move on, Ireland. What? Get further along in your journey, In a lot of ways, it's nice to have a fat protagonist who just happens to be fat and isn't grappling with being fat. And that it's just you just get to the romance. You just she's just fat and that's just part of a person is tall or short, or a person has freckles or no freckles.
Or whatever.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think, understand where you are in your journey. Mm-hmm. If you're at the beginning, I think you're going to fucking love this. If you're at the end, I think you will find it tedious as well.
That doesn't mean it's not an excellent book.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's so funny because I think the characters are well fleshed out given such a short period of time. But then in talking to you, I'm like, no, you're right. Definitely.
Given such a short period of time, yes.
For how short it is, you definitely get three-dimensionality for all of them. Again, maybe not Caleb as much. You get internal point of view. Mm-hmm. It's not just these kind of static.
Cowboy.
Cowboy
photographer. Boom.
Cowboy photographer. Alternate title.
Not lavender lipstick.
Not lavender lipstick. What's funny? Because in my head, whenever I read it, I change it to red.
That's so funny.
I'm like, no, she's wearing red lipstick. At one point, she wears blue lipstick.
She does. I think Sierra Simone just wanted to get that lipstick all over the boys.
That was, it really reminded, of well, I don't know if I want to talk about this.
I think I know what you're talking about. We never together.
But that's what it reminded me of.
Me too. Maybe that's why I don't like it. You know what you're thinking what I'm thinking.
I know what I'm thinking. Oh my God.
Anyway,
moving on. I hope the listeners understand.
Listeners infer whatever they want out of that exchange.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Okay. And just the fact that it's a smut novella.
Yeah.
This is something new for us.
Better. See, here's the thing. If I just want to read a quick scene because I just want to be titillated, I'll find a quick scene with, that's very poignant. The pizza is here. That kind of thing. So,
yeah.
you know, sometimes I do want a little bit more than just like you open the door and boom, they're fucking. But, you know, maybe I can't be mad at the novella. Maybe I shouldn't crap on the novella. Maybe like there's uses for it.
Yeah.
Because I think The Priest in listening time was almost 12 hours. So it did give me the more fleshed out characters. It did give me the background, more angst for sure. Like there wasn't enough time for me to be like, Ireland, girl, go back. You knew she was going back.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we should find some other smut novellas.
Yeah.
Maybe I just don't like novellas.
Yeah. It could be.
Maybe.
You know, and I definitely think like you could definitely like fast forward or like flip through the pages and just like get to the sex scenes. No, of course not. No, but I'm talking for the listeners here.
Yes.
You know, again, like there's some good threesomes in this book.
Yeah, there is.
And there's variety. I would say they're not all the same. Like each instance is different.
Slightly. I do wish there had been a little more dude action with her just like watching. I feel like
all
of
good
it was very centered on her, which was
the point. Yeah.
Which was the point.
Again, if we were jumping forward in their timeline.
Also, they do very much say up front, like the boys are the boys with a third. Like they engage in the relationship together. So there is no like Ireland and Ben go off and Caleb is like sleeping in his room. There's none of that.
Right.
So that's probably why.
Right.
Actually.
Yeah, there is no twosomes that within this polyamorous couple. And they also said that Caleb and Ben tried just being together at one point, and it just like didn't quite work for them. And not that they have sex with each other. Like the first time Ireland accepts both of them into her body, you know, Ben is preparing himself. Caleb's already inside of her, and Caleb's like, Ben's really good at it. So like there is precedent.
I loved that.
Yeah. So like they have fucked each other plenty, but just not in this book.
Yeah, it's not what they want.
Or it's like not the scenes we're seeing.
Oh, fair. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think it is happening, but because this is a story about Ireland mostly, you know, she and like her involvement and the way that they worship her.
Yes. The adoration is lovely.
The adoration and worship is great. Again, if you've got like they definitely like there's praise kink, but there's also shaming kink. Like, oh, you're our little slut, like you're our little whore, and she really likes it.
Not a lot, barely any.
Yeah, but I think it's present.
Yeah.
So like while she's being adored, they're also kind of like, you know, helping her expand her like kinky horizons. Yeah, and she's like, and then she's like constantly like, oh, I'm really into this, and they're like, we love that you're into this. Like, so it's very much kind of like a sexual awakening in general as well, because again, her abusive ex just like sounded like the sex sucked. She's like, he made me feel like he was doing me a favor every time it happened. Which like, he's the worst.
He's the worst.
What a well-rendered villain.
And I'm so glad they beat him up at the end.
Yeah, spoiler alert. I wish we'd seen that scene.
We didn't need to see it though. We didn't need to know that
could have been satisfying though.
It was satisfying to know that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, so at the end everybody reconciles and Caleb and Ben are like, yeah, by the way, we beat the shit out of that guy.
And he says he's sorry.
He's never gonna bother you again. Again, what a fantasy. Like, you know, like how many of us have a horrible ex who like you kind of like, obviously I wouldn't want like my husband to go beat up my horrible ex.
No.
In real life, I'm like, no, don't fight, you know? Yeah. But like in a fantasy world, you're like, yeah, do it.
Cowboys.
Yeah.
My soldier and my cowboy.
Yeah. And again, like that's so interesting to me with romance books. The way we have these fantasies, like she's mine. He growled, like all this stuff. Like in real life, I'd be like, no, thank you. But in a romance, in a fantasy, you're like, yeah, you know, like be possessive or like fight somebody for me. Mm-hmm. So interesting.
I agree. It was satisfying that they beat him up at the end. I didn't need to see it. I just needed to know that it happened.
Yeah, know that it happened. Yeah. It would be nice if Ireland beat him up too. That would have been kind of dope. Yeah. And then, you know, this is our first cowboy romance that we've read together.
Yeah. It was more farmer. Although there was a cow.
That's true. But you
get the cowboy.
I wonder, readers out there.
And the boots and the truck and the dog and all of that.
And the downhill. And there's a single cow. No horse riding though.
Right. And that's what I'm thinking.
No, totally. I like that's so funny. Yeah.
But cowboy, farmer.
In the Elise Silver series, like the Heartless series, like all four of them those books are about cowboys, and they are significantly more cowboys. Like
With a lasso.
They do rodeos and
Nice.
like, yeah. And they actually like, yeah, have horses and it's good stuff. We'll read those at another point.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why women like some Cowboys.
Yeah.
For me, it's the boots and the butt and the jeans.
Yeah. And there's something like warm about it in like a romance. It's very cozy.
Yeah.
Maybe because it has this Americana flavor to it.
We always think of them being like a down home, small town.
Yeah.
The good boy or like captain of the football team or like whatever. There's all those. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then on the other side of it, like you get Ben, who's kind of, again, it's like very much in this like maybe bad boy.
Yeah.
But still also a cowboy, sort of.
Well, he's soldier.
Yeah. He's more the soldier. Yeah.
Soldier living on a farm.
Yeah. Who owns a bar. Yeah, that's true. So maybe, yeah, you wouldn't include him. But yeah, it's fun stuff. If anybody out there, if you have a favorite cowboy romance that you would like us to take a look at or just want to talk to us about, email us.
Please let us know. We're always looking to read more books.
Yeah. Okay. Should we do the ratings?
Yeah. I'll give this one a solid 4.
Out of 10?
Oh, out of 10. Sorry, I was thinking 5. No, 8.
Yeah. Okay.
8.
Well, that's surprising given your reaction.
Just because certain things are not for me or I found things tedious doesn't mean I can't recognize that it's a good book.
That's funny because I think I would rate it low. I think I'm like maybe like a 7 or 7.5. But maybe an 8. Yeah, it's in that range.
Earlier, it would have been a 6. After this conversation, it's
wow. Okay. There you go. I love it. Yes. Yeah. Okay, spice rating. How many peppers?
So we have to take into account they're always having sex together. That's pretty spicy.
Mm-hmm.
I would say maybe 4 out of 5 spicy peppers, but not quite.
I was going to say 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
But I also think our scales are different.
The people reading it, not
us,
not me per se, because I feel like I'm somewhat sensitized. I think a lot of people will find this. Like, I think for the general public, I would rate this a 4 out of 5.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I guess it is hard to say, because especially again, like I think a lot of like dark romance is like really spice. People like, rate those really high spice, but like it doesn't necessarily mean it's like sexier,
Yeah. It's just more.
It's just more out there. There's more stuff happening. You're like, okay, I did not know that was a thing people did. Or like I read that book that had nodding in it, and I was like, okay, like this is new, or like, yeah, monster smut in general. Like, this is a dragon with 2 dicks. Like, you get some interesting stuff happening. I read that book. Wait, just like, like the horizons are vast. And this is a pretty standard stuff, even though because there's 3 people, there's some stuff that they do that's, a bit.
Maybe 3 spicy peppers.
I think between 3 and 4. I think, yeah. Your mileage may vary based on what you have read so far.
Objects in mirror. Than they appear.
Yeah, like if you're a well-versed smut reader, this might be a 3.
Yeah.
If you're not, it's probably a 4.
Yeah.
And you might really, really like it. Go for it.
Let us know.
Yeah, please let us know. And also, if you have other romance books that you have read with a fat protagonist, please send them our way. We would love to collate a list, potentially put it on our website even, and just also have those books to potentially read for the podcast. Yeah, it's good stuff. Again, Jennifer L. Armentrout, Julie Murphy, and Sierra Simone are the 3 that I'm aware of, the 3 authors who write fat protagonists in their romance. But yeah, please expand our horizons as well.
Always. Spread our wingspan, if you will.
Spread our wingspan!
Yes. All right. Well, thanks for the suggestion to read the Sierra, and maybe more Sierra Simone at a later date, which might be a little more intense. I'm a little scared.
We might have to wait for next season.
Probably.
Because I really want to know what you think. And I feel like it would be a good thing to share with our listeners.
A little.
I really do. Yeah.
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Spread Your Wingspan podcast. We would love to hear what you think about our topics today. Be sure to connect with us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
You can find us on both with the handle @SpreadYourWingspan. And all the links and more fun stuff are found on our website, spreadyourwingspan.com.
And if you have a book or author you want us to check out, send us an email at hello@spreadyourwingspan.com to tell us.
We hope you tune into the next episode.